going to look at 4 arguments that are commonly given to show that it is reasonable to believe that God exists. These arguments are the Kalam Cosmological Argument, the Moral Argument, the Teleological Argument, and the Ontological Argument. The word cosmos means universe, and the Kalam Cosmological Argument says that everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe had a cause. Universal human experience shows us that everything that begins to exist has a cause. We don't see things popping into existence out of nothing. After all, nothing, which is literally no thing, does not have anything with which to create something out of. Additionally, both science, such as evidence for the Big Bang, and philosophy, such as the impossibility of transgressing through an actual infinite amount of time, show the second premise of this argument to be true, that the universe had a beginning. Since premise 1 and premise 2 are true statements, and this argument doesn't break any rules of logic, that means that the conclusion is also true. The universe began to exist and was caused to exist by something that is the first cause of everything else, which is God. The second argument for God's existence that we're going to look at is the moral argument. The moral argument says if God does not exist, then objective moral values and duties do not exist. Objective moral values and duties do exist, therefore God exists. This argument is saying that good and evil are real objective standards for the world, but that objective standard only is objective if it's grounded in God's nature. If morality is not grounded in God's nature, then we have no objective basis for our morality. In that case, morality is just a subjective matter of opinion, not an objective standard that everyone should obey. Some will point out that atheists and agnostics can be good, even though they don't believe in God, which I would agree with, and I would even say that sometimes atheists and agnostics behave in morally better ways than people do who do believe in God. However, we are not asking if you can be good without believing in God. We're asking if there can be an objective standard of goodness if God does not exist. We're saying that the existence of objective moral values only makes sense if there is an objective standard in which to ground these values, which is God. The third argument for the existence of God that we're going to look at is the teleological argument. This argument comes from the Greek word telos, which means end or purpose. This argument is saying that the existence of fine-tuning in the universe is evidence of an intelligent purpose for the universe, which can only come from an intelligent creator. Recent scientific discoveries have shown that the conditions that allow life to be possible in our universe can only occur if certain fundamental physical constants and qualities fall within a very narrow life-permitting range. If only one of these physical constants were off just slightly, then life would not be possible in our universe. For example, if the gravitational force, which is measured by the gravitational constant, was changed in one part in 10 to the power of 40, then stars could not exist and neither could life. To give you an idea of just how narrow this range is, imagine if you take a tape measure and you stretch it across the entire known universe. Then we would mark the gravitational force on that tape measure as a particular inch mark. It would take up 1 inch of that tape measure. So then, if you change that tape measure and move it an inch either to the left or to the right, then it wouldn't be possible for stars to exist or for life to exist. That's how narrow this range is for the gravitational constant. This need for fine-tuning to these constants applies to many other constants in our universe, such as the distance of the Earth from the Sun so that we don't get too hot or too cold, the expansion rate of the universe, and the strong nuclear force of the universe. The fine-tuning of these physical constants in our universe point to an intelligent designer of our universe, which is God. The fourth argument that we're going to look at for God's existence is called the Ontological Argument. Now, I personally find the ontological argument to be less convincing than the other 3 arguments that we've discussed, partly because it's difficult to wrap my mind around, but I think it can be helpful for some people, so I'm going to try to explain it the best I can. The ontological argument says that it's logically possible that a greatest possible being exists. A greatest possible being exists in some possible world. If a greatest possible being exists in some possible world, then it exists in every possible world. If a greatest possible being exists in every possible world, then it exists in the actual world. A greatest possible being exists in the actual world, Therefore, a greatest possible being exists. Basically, this argument is saying that if you can think of a greatest possible being, then in order for that being to actually be the greatest possible being, that being would have to actually exist. If that being only existed inside your mind as a concept, then that wouldn't be the greatest possible being, because the concept in your mind would be greater if it actually existed. Also, in order to be a maximally great being, a being would have to exist in every possible world, which includes the actual world. Therefore, God must exist in the actual world. These are 4 arguments that show that it is reasonable to believe that God exists. Please like and subscribe for more videos that share God's love through apologetics, and remember, Jesus loves you.